It's time for Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless time.
Democrat running for council in Upper Manhattan denies being an anti-Semite.
But he does admit to being a liar.
If Hillary Clinton would have won the presidency, I don't think you'd be hearing a word about any Russian involvement in our elections.
I told Ryan, I fundamentally disagree with virtually everything you've decided about my character.
Rumor is that Google has already replaced the employee. In the spirit of diversity, she's actually a single black mother, transgender, pansexual, undocumented immigrant with a PhD in women's studies, and she has rickets. So she is a modern marvel.
That the only reason it exists was to have a strong female at the forefront of the Avengers. But they prioritized that over good writing. I say this about comics too, and how they sacrifice good storytelling and character building for non-white male characters by overemphasizing their minority status.
It's a standard ploy of the Democrats. Whenever they lose, they won't accept it.
It's time for Johnny and the Professor.
Here you have someone who falsely claimed to be an historically oppressed minority in order to get a job reserved for members of that group, American Indians. Totally lied in order to make money, and that's cool. And yet someone who jokes about it is the bigot. Like, how does that work exactly?
We know that Obama colluded with Russia when he basically told Medvedev, hey, when the American people are out of sight, I'm going to make a deal with Putin. We know that Hillary colluded with Russia. She took money in exchange for the whole uranium deal. The one person who has not colluded with Russia, at least as far as we know, is Trump.
Yet again, our corporate media has been caught frothing with hysteria over a false story.
Johnny and the Professor.
Another exciting episode of Johnny and the Professor.
Common sense for senseless times.
Where we talk politics, pop culture, and plant-based hamburgers.
Oh, yum.
And who is our guest today, Professor?
Today we have actress and singer and internet personality and political commentator, Joy Vila.
Hi. Hi, guys.
Welcome back to the show, right? What have you been doing?
A little old thing called the Grammys. Doing my things, strutting my stuff on the Grammys red carpet just a couple days ago, and that created quite a stir, as usual.
I can't imagine why, since your dress only said Trump 2020, and then the back is impeached and reelected. I
know. Why are people triggered?
I admire your ability to go into the lion's den there and just poke them right in the eye and say, yeah, you guys are pretty foolish.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So, Joy, who helped you with your look?
My dress was designed by Desi Design Couture. She designed my Build-the-Wall dress last year. So we had a lot of fun doing this look, and it was all handmade for me, of course, for my body. It's made out of latex. My shoes are by Uplift by Lily. Did you see my shoes, gentlemen?
Yes, I did. I looked at
original 13, the Betsy Ross flag, 13 colonies. My purse was by a woman named Michelle Nicole. She's a fan of mine. She sent it to me. It's all Swarovski crystal. She's, I think, Michelle Nicole 1986 on Instagram. Just amazing people sent me these beautiful products. I proudly wore them on the red carpet. Yep, it says Trump 2020 on the front because that's what I believe. We're going to reelect him by a landslide. So I put on the back, impeached. Okay, fine, whatever this farce, this sham of an impeachment, and reelected. Because that's what's going to happen.
Anybody say anything to you on the red carpet about your dress or anything?
I got a lot of negative looks. I did get a woman who screamed at me. She said, my country is burning because of you. She's from Australia. She said, my country is burning because of you. I said, that wasn't me. I said, that wasn't me. She was a Trump supporter.
Right.
My country's burning because of you.
Wow.
I said, that wasn't me. She said, that was that right-wing climate deniers. That's why it's burning. Of course, it's not true.
Well, of course, it doesn't.
Arsonists who started the fire, the unfortunate, horrible charted fire.
Well, I guess
burning down Australia.
Yeah, I didn't see the video they have of Donald Trump down there with flamethrowers lighting Australia on fire. Apparently, don't say that too loud.
And I said that wasn't me. I said some people can't handle the truth.
Oh no!
And she walked away angry, shaking her fist. I mean, she was yelling. She was crazy. And then, of course, a lot of photographers, unfortunately, they were screaming obscenities at me. They were like, Trump, and they were, just screaming and yelling, which is unprofessional. They did this last year with the Build the Wall dress. So
aren't reporters supposed to be not biased?
These are just photographers. They're hired to take pictures on the red carpet. Take your little, hourly pay and get off there. They're hired by Getty and Wire Images, and then they're not even the reporters.
Wow.
These are just the photographers. The reporters themselves will challenged me with a lot of political talk. And a lot of them just looked at me and looked away because they hate my guts. But the smart ones were come talk to me.
Right.
But a lot of them, USA Today was lovely. Today was great. Variety said it wouldn't be the Grammys without Joy Villa in a political dress. They opened their article saying that. Isn't that amazing? It was Variety magazine, who covers big-time celebrities. Hollywood Reporter did an incredible article on me. Daily Mail did a great article on me, and they're usually just trash. So a lot of places, People.com did a great article. So a lot of press, actually, more press even than previous years, were kind, or at least covered it. And some people just looked at me and just didn't want to talk to me, which is stupid because they get paid better. They get more props to their I am news. The Grammys are news. Trump is news. So just because you have biases, you should still cover the news. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But again, do they actually? It's more narrative than news for a lot of those channels. When you're in Hollywood, you always have the people their opinions. But if you don't know a Hollywood celebrity's opinion, the person told me that I was talking about this once, to just assume they are moderate or conservative. Do you think that's true?
Right. If they don't talk about their politics, they're probably leaning conservative or moderate. Only the hard left in Hollywood is allowed to talk about politics. I'm changing that. I want to change that. I just mentioned my friends that also were on my dress is America Against Hollywood, which is an incredible group that's looking to, promote Americans taking a stand and go against Hollywood trying to tell America what to think. The heartland of America, which are mostly conservative. And then Viral PAC, which is an incredible group I've joined forces with, who are mobilizing investors to invest, and then they sponsor pro-Trump celebrities like myself, conservative artists to help get Trump reelected. If your listeners want to donate, they can go to Viral PAC. I believe it's .org. Viral PAC it's great. So they help, offset some of the costs. They sponsored some of my look. We have a lot of things planned for 2020. We're going to get him reelected. Absolutely. This is the biggest fight that we have for the American people because Trump is preserving the American exceptionalism. He's making sure that we're not suffering, like we did under Obama with the horrible economy, liberal policies that were bordering on socialism, high premiums on health care, pro-life. This is the first president who's actually started defunding Planned Parenthood. This is super important to me. Building the wall. The First Step Act, prison reform. The list goes on and on. So we need 4 more years of that.
Well, the only good thing about this ridiculous impeachment is I think the Democrats are actually helping get Trump reelected because this is such a bunch of nonsense.
Exactly. It's just mobilizing the base more, helping us.
And even more so, those moderates we were talking about, the moderate people are looking at it and going, this is so ridiculous. I mean, it was so, I was so weird to watch it, the Democratic managers talking about for 20 hours or whatever, they were up there yakking about it.
Crazy.
And then the defense team gets in there and does about a third of the time and says, well, I don't really need to do much because their arguments are a bunch of crap and unconstitutional. Right. And it just was amazing to see the difference between it. The problem is if they acquit it, I've been reading recently that it looks like there's Democrats that are going to vote for acquittal on Trump. They're beginning to be actually people talking about it. If that happens, then, are they going to stop, though? Are the Democrats, do you think, just going to come in and try to impeach him again?
They're going to keep trying, but they're not going to be successful.
They have no understanding other than that they want to keep power. I think it's very important, right. And I think you're a good one to talk about this. Is that Hollywood getting back the the media, as in the media, the entertainment industry and all that, those have been so dominated by the leftists in this country that it has to be a huge fight to get them back. And I think you're a great example of someone who's trying to do that.
Well, what I'm trying to do is just equalize the playing field so that conservatives can speak up just as loudly as liberals. Because I have a sneaking suspicion 30 to 50% of Hollywood is conservative, or at least leaning towards that. Moderate conservative. It has to be that way. This is how the world is. This is how our country is. And unfortunately, what you see is 99% liberals speaking up. And that's not true. That's not the true reflection of what is out there. So I'm trying to level this playing field by saying, listen, free speech. I'm going to put out my music. I'm going to mobilize the base. I'm going to be active in what I support. And the louder they try to shut me down and stop, the louder I'm going to be. I feel like I wouldn't be in this position if they weren't so triggered by us having our free speech, by a mere mention of support by this president, for this president. And that's crazy to me. That's not fair. So yes, I'm turning people conservative simply because I'm proud of who I am, and I don't deny it. I'm proud of everything of who I am. But my intention is mostly to just inspire, and you could say mobilize the Trump supporters that are already out there. And then by product, people just go, okay, I want to vote Trump too, because look how cool she is. Look how happy she is. Look how unafraid she is. That's my thing, because when I talk to people, I say, I'm not going to try to change your viewpoint. You can have your viewpoint, but I'm going to tell you mine. You're not going to shut me up.
Yeah, and that's what they try to do. It's like if you have a different opinion, then you're so full of hate. You must be a racist. You hateful, racist person, you.
Right.
And it has always amazed me that, and again, the strange thing I always see that is when you have people who are, again, people of color, and yet somehow they're being racist against their own people, quote unquote, if they support conservative ideas.
I know. I'm a black white supremacist.
with a little Choctaw mixed in there, if memory serves me.
Choctaw and Latina, Choctaw and Black American. I'm so proud of my heritage. I'm proud of my parentage. I'm proud of who I am. I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter. I'm an actress. I do a lot of media events. I have so much fun with my life. Politics is one part of it. It's a big part of it because it's so important right now. Because it talks about critical thinking. I want to teach young people critical thinking. You need to be aware of what's going on. Your voice is being stolen from you. People are trying to take away what is your right to speak out, to be who you are, and to be proud of that. And that's why it's really disgusting when people use name-calling and slander to try to shut someone down. That already is an indicator that there's truth on the other side. They can't even accept you saying what you think, right? Your thoughts are bad. It's Bad Think, 1986 by George Orwell. And it's wrong. I fight against that because I'm a rebel and I always will be. And this is the big picture, because when Trump serves his next 4 years, what are we going to do after? We're going to have to keep this momentum going, keep this fire burning, and keep mobilizing people to support our country and support free speech and all the rights that our forefathers fought and bled for.
Isn't it strange that a radical in America today is a conservative, not a liberal? They're not. Yeah. They're not the ones who are supposed to be for liberty, as in liberal. No, there's.
Right. I mean, they're going to get tired of calling us a racist every 5 seconds, calling us a misogynist every 5 seconds, xenophobic, homophobic. When more LGBT are coming out for Trump than ever, more women, more young people, more people of color. Like, come on now. You can't keep using those names to slander us. It just gets ridiculous, and I'm sick of it. That's why I keep doing what I'm doing. I walked away, and I'm going to keep walking away.
So have you talked to the president recently?
Not recently, but I did talk to him a couple months ago, and I told the White House what I was going to do. I told Ivanka I was going to do something supportive. And, I never share my message. I keep it tight-lipped. And I said there's going to be something supportive out there. I love those guys. They're the kindest, coolest people. This administration is so cool. And they're working so hard. Everyone there. Every Trump, Laura Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka, the president, the first lady, and all the administration are working so hard for us. as the American people. And they're serving us. I love it. They're really good, kind, very forthright, very intelligent people. Like this family and this administration, they're just I can't speak highly enough. And people don't see that side unless, you really meet them. I wish everyone could meet the president. They would see, damn, this guy's amazing. He's funny. He's capable. He really is what he says he is. Because the media perverts it. They're just perverters of the truth.
Well, they can't have that truth, the real truth, because they have a narrative. They have to have what they want reality to be. So, do you have any new recording projects you're doing right now or performing?
Well, I'm promoting my album called Home Sweet Home, which is on iTunes, Amazon, Google Music, and Spotify, Apple Music. And Home Sweet Home is a patriotic EP I released. It has my single Make America Great Again on it. And I've got my movie The Contrast, which I starred in. It's a romantic comedy. It's being edited. It comes out later this year. And I've got some other secret projects I'm working on. More music and TV appearances and other things. I joined the Screen Actors Guild, so I'm official now. SAG-AFTRA, I'm an official. And people don't know, but I started doing acting. I started doing theater. So I've performed my whole life, and I love it. I'm an artist through and through, and this is what I love to do, and you'll see a lot more from me, along with politics, of course. I won't shut up my big mouth.
So, but the movie you're coming out, it's later in the year. You don't have they don't know when it's coming out, because I'd like to go see it.
It's still being edited, but it was produced by Chris Johnson, who is an out and proud conservative and Trump supporter.
And those, again, we're beginning to see more and more of those people that are pushing in those directions.
Yeah, we're coming out loud.
Because there isn't any reason to be, just because you what is the term they use for it when the woke people destroy you? But I mean, it's the whole point. It's all just attacks. As soon as you open your mouth, you can't listen to it. It tells you if you have to just yell at people or call them names, you really don't have any arguments. Then you don't want to be part of a democracy or a republic. You want to be a dictator. We all are supposed to do what you think.
But they're saying Trump's a dictator.
If he does, he's the worst dictator I've ever seen, because he doesn't seem. I mean, literally, they called him a dictator on the floor of the Senate, and I kept waiting for it. It was Jerry Nadler, and I'm going. And where were the guards coming and picking up Jerry Nadler and taking him away for calling him a dictator?
Crazy.
I mean, what a bunch of foolish people these Democrats are. Thank you very much for being on our show again, and we'll have you on again later, especially when your movie's coming out. I'd like to talk about that.
I enjoyed myself for my second appearance. Love you guys. Keep doing what you're doing, and we're going to win this thing, and let's just do it with a smile on our face. You can find me on Twitter at @Joy_Villa, on Facebook at JoyVillaMusic, and on Instagram at JoyVilla.
Thanks for taking the time with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So, here we have Joy.
I feel almost bad for having an interviewer with her. She's obviously been overtaxing her voice. It is strange, though, to see someone who's, I mean, she's a lady who literally is made of what the left would call as all the minorities. I mean, she's Native American, she's Hispanic, she's Black American, and yet she is totally ostracized by them. They all, when you look at the other stories on her, I mean, she's right. There are a lot of positive stories that are written, but if you looked around at MSNBC or CNN, they just if they mention it at all, it's just ridicule. Just some poor brainwashed person who's been taken in by the evil power of the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Trump. Hey, Johnny, it's really interesting. The Gallup poll just came out with a set of polls recently, and I always have to be careful with polls because they aren't always accurate. You have to look at their sources. But in this one, it was just Gallup did a poll of the nation's satisfaction with issues. They do this every year or so. The state of the national economy. What do you think of it? Positive? Do you think it's in good or bad? Good shape? If you asked them back in 2017, 46% of people thought the economy was in good shape. In 2020, it's up to 69%. Now. Security from terrorism. Is the country secure from terrorists? In 2017, they thought it was 50%. It's now 68%. Military preparedness. It was 66% before in 17. Now in 20, it's 81%. The one that really surprised me was race relations. Do you think race relations in the United States is going in a way that's satisfactory? Back in 2017, it was 22%. It's now 36%. And you go, well, it's still only a little over a third. Yeah, but it's a jump of 12 points since Donald Trump's been in office. And then advancement of minorities, they went from 37 to 46. Economic income distribution went from 35 to 43, thinking it positive. And if they actually believe people get ahead by hard work, it went from 66 to 72. So, I mean, almost everything here we're talking about is like a 20% increase in the last 2 years from when Trump being in office. And yet, for some reason, if you turn on other news outlets, they're talking about doom and despair and tyranny and how horrible people are being, and you know, Trump is a tyrant and Trump is a dictator. Are they just that really good at lying, or are they just totally delusional? I don't really have the answer to that question. Anything that you disagree with is propaganda. I mean, it's the situation right now. Again, let's get back to the impeachment. Trump's defense team, closed up theirs, taking about a third of the time the Democrats managers put in. Their case was the same case they're putting in again, obstruction of Congress and abuse of power, and there's no, those are not charges. And which is what Alan Dershowitz brought out. Those are not charges. You just picked the wrong things. If you honestly believed he was guilty of abuse of power, you should have put him up for bribery then.
What I saw was, and it just boggles my mind because they make so much money and they can't do their job. They rushed the impeachment, right, under the guise that it was an emergency, a national emergency. Didn't call their witnesses, or they called feeling witnesses, not fact witnesses, right? They called the professors, said, well, and then the one guy, not beyond my own presumption. That's what he said. That was his evidence.
I just presumed. I presumed that to be the case. Well, that tells me you're a corrupt individual, but doesn't mean the people that the president is just because you are.
Then they hold on to the articles
for over a month.
Yeah. Then, when things start to get going, they're arguing witnesses and documents when it's not time to argue witnesses and documents. But they keep just arguing witnesses and documents, and it wasn't. The Republicans, or at least the Senate, they're like, it's not time to argue the witnesses and documents yet. We do this later, and they just keep arguing witnesses and documents when there wouldn't be a witnesses and documents argument had they just called their witnesses during their hearings in the first place.
But they were afraid of that. They were afraid that if they did that, Trump would have done what he's entitled to say, I have executive privilege and I don't want these people to testify because of matters of national security and confidentially with other nations, and they'd have had to take him to court, and that could have taken some time. You're literally telling the court now, you're telling the jury, well, we would like you to vote to bring in more witnesses because we didn't do a good enough job in putting forth our prosecution of this person. So would you do us a favor and subpoena a bunch of witnesses for us so we can prove our case that we weren't able to prove before because we were too lazy and didn't have enough time?
Oh, no, you are involved in a cover-up.
Apparently. All they had to do was call their witnesses and go through the normal proceedings. Barack Obama the same thing happened with him. Remember, the Eric Holder for Fast and Furious was subpoenaed by the Congress, and it went through the courts and was fought through and before he had to come in. And that Obama had several people in the same situation. He put forth executive privilege. Again, Trump is, to the left, is the incarnate of evil and therefore must be stopped at all points. Everything he does is bad, and everything Obama did was good, even though the one difference between Donald Trump and Barack Obama, and that is, as far as I can see it right now, is Donald Trump doesn't have the blood of any Americans on his hand, and Benghazi ended up with blood on Obama's and Hillary's hand. So let's say, who exactly is the worst villain here?
Well, it's always Trump.
That's thing. It doesn't matter. It's always Trump.
This is Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless time.
Well, in the end, you know what happened or didn't. Schiff did not produce the evidence. He didn't have it because it doesn't exist. Schiff was bluffing, which is to say, lying. Nobody in Washington has learned anything. And why would they learn anything? When they screw up, there are never any consequences. They skate by on the usual mixture of aggression and BS. Nothing to see here. Keep moving. If you get caught lying about the big things, whether it's about weapons of mass destruction or subprime mortgages or Russian collusion, you have to admit it and serve penance. Not necessarily prison time, though we're open, but punishment of some kind. You can't stay in Washington making 6 times the average American salary. You can't do that. No, sorry. You've got to leave.
Contact the show at jpshowfm@gmail.com. This is Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless time.
Ewan McGregor on Birds of Prey, proud to be in a film that was a feminist film that tackled misogyny. They have gone down the identity politics, Orange Man Bad rabbit hole. If and when this film does underperform, they are going to claim it's because of misogynists. And as a matter of fact, I've got it pulled up. Wow, misogynists are already bashing Birds of Prey. This seems familiar, almost like Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman and Ghostbusters. So to put Wonder Woman in the category with those other two movies, it's like you're trying to misrepresent the situation, which is exactly what you're doing.
Contact the show at jpshowfm@gmail.com.
It's Johnny and the Professor.
Common sense for senseless times.
Where we talk politics, pop culture, and plant-based hamburgers.
Oh, yum.
You've seen those, like on TV.
The Impossible Burger or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Impossible
it's
Whopper.
plant-based. It tastes just like meat. I'm wondering what kind of plants they are, though.
They're obviously, beefsteak tomatoes, I guess. What I would tend to think.
Yeah.
The only reason I would believe that that's possible, that you could make something that, say, a Whopper that tastes like out of vegetable material that tastes like a Whopper, is because last time I had a Whopper, all I could taste on it was the sauce.
Oh, yeah.
And the vegetables, the meat had no flavor at all. So yet, if your patty has no flavor, then logically a vegetable patty can have no flavor too.
All right. See, and that's kind of pop culture-ish, food.
Yeah.
Burger King and Jack in the Box, I think, is doing one too, a plant-based.
Because, there are people I guess there's enough vegetarians and vegans. It's funny, there's a big difference between them. The vegetarians, I met a lot of people who are vegetarians and they choose to eat vegetables, and sometimes they'll eat fish or chicken. It's not because of a big moral stance. But I remember when I was teaching, I had a girl one time who was a vegan. It's the first time I'd ever heard this, and I said, "So you're a vegan?" And she goes, "Yeah." And she goes, "So you don't eat any meats?" I asked her, and she said, "This is before class," and she said, "And I don't eat any refined sugars, and I don't eat any honey." And I went, "Why wouldn't you eat honey?" And she said, "Well, it's made by the enslavement of bees."
The enslavement of bees.
And I had a better poker face than you did, because I just sat there and said, okay, because what are you going to tell her that, I'm sorry, but that's really fragging stupid. The bees make the honey. You can say you're stealing from them if that bothers you, okay?
Right.
From a moral point of view, you're stealing from them. But, they make honey. Nobody makes them make honey.
Yeah, they're going to make honey no matter what.
What you want. And I assume that you should at least be on equal footing, say, for a black bear, because if a black bear finds honey, what are they going to do?
Right.
They're going to come and eat it too. So
right. Well, it's their black bear privilege.
Apparently. Well, see, I've been told I have somewhat of an ursine look about me sometimes. So if it's good enough for a bear, it's good enough for me. Maybe I'm actually an ursine American at heart, and I need to be thinking of myself as a bear, and the people have to give me the privilege and benefits of being a bear.
It's your bear privilege. You take that honey from the bees.
Yeah.
Speaking of other stupid things, Kathleen Kennedy, she screwed up the Obi-Wan series now. They're shelving that. It's either... Well, first they said it has not been postponed. It's just been pushed back.
Yeah, that's some interesting...
So you like that?
Oh, yeah. It's like, we are not retreating. We just happen to be advancing in the other direction.
In the opposite direction. Oh, boy.
So, which is a shame, because if the Obi-Wan series had anything like the Mandalorian series had, you actually got some writers and interest in it that were wanting to kind of fix the problems of Star Wars, it might have been good. But I think this woman needs to be sent to a galaxy far, far away. This Kennedy person.
Kathleen Kennedy is who, and you see, I kind of have my own theory about this. I think George knew by putting Kathleen Kennedy at the head of Lucasfilm, he knew what was going to happen doing this. It has totally torn apart the fandom of Star Wars and the company. It's totally, just wrecked Lucasfilm. And I think he kind of knew it. I think he knew it would happen. I think he actually planned on this happening. Maybe you can explain it better than I can, because you are a professor and I'm not. you are a professor of history, and I'm not. I'm not a professor of anything. I don't know if you knew that.
I think you're a professor of Master of the Radio Waves.
Psychoceramics. That's the study of crackpots. So, Rogue One was a decent movie. It wasn't the greatest. It wasn't part of the trilogy. It was kind of like a side story kind of thing. And with the disaster, the sequels...
I mean, I think your argument would be Lucas looked at it and said, this woman is going to be so incompetent that even my first 3 movies that a lot of Star Wars fans are about, I mean, as in Revenge of the Sith and Return and all that, that they may actually, now all of a sudden, they're actually pretty good. And I'm of that opinion, too. If you said, you can watch Phantom Menace or you can watch The Force Awakens, I'm going to make you watch one of them. I watch Phantom Menace.
Same here.
So, and that's what it comes down to. But if you say you can watch Phantom Menace or A New Hope, I'll watch A New Hope.
Right.
No problem.
Now there's a rumor going around that Lucas wants to come back to fix everything, but he needs to have full control.
No, that would be interesting. I guess he would have to... What are you going to do? Star Wars with time travel? Use the J.J. Abrams method? I'll just make it an alternate timeline?
And he can't redo it. Carrie is dead. Well, they just totally ruined the possibility and potential of having the 3 together.
Well, but again, you're not going to get Harrison Ford back.
Right.
Not unless you offer him a Robert Downey Jr. sum of money.
Right. And the way Mark Hamill was treated in the sequel trilogy, I wouldn't doubt if he just didn't want to come back, unless George was running things.
If George were running things, and again, but in Harrison Ford's case, I don't think he would come back no matter what.
Yeah, he didn't want to come back for the second movie or the third movie or the...
Yeah, well, it's Harrison Ford. I was Harrison Ford. He's just kind of thinks he's a cool kid, the cool kid in school. I liked Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I enjoyed The Last Crusade. And other than that, Harrison Ford, I don't really, he's just there.
Right.
I often think about it. Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones would have probably been hilarious. Well, Harrison Ford's fine, but he's 6'1", something, Selleck is 6'5", and people loved him from Magnum. I mean, he was just going to be this. I know he would have just.
You think he would have been better?
Oh, I think he'd have been much better. I think he's a much better actor than Tom Selleck is than Harrison Ford. I've never seen anything Harrison Ford's done that I went, wow, great acting performance, and I have seen Tom Selleck do some stuff.
What about that one where he's on the run? Falsely accused of killing his wife.
That was kind of a witless movie. That movie, that's a remake of an old one, and the old one's better. And the only thing really that was really good in The Modern Witness was Tommy Lee Jones. I want you to hunt every outhouse, every birdhouse, every whatever. They're going to find this man. I'm innocent. I don't care. I mean, he had all the great lines in it. It was he's what actually made that movie relatively interesting. I thought Harrison Ford and his attacked by a one-armed man or whatever.
Right.
Which was actually in that case that was the I can't remember it's not Jurassic. It's the one who was that actor that plays him. He was actually a pretty good actor too. I'm drawing a blank on his name. He played. He was in Babylon 5, but I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Yeah, I didn't. It's just that's my personal opinion. I'm not. Some people love actors. I'm kind of a picky individual when it comes to acting talent. Either they have charisma and I like them, or they have talent and I like them. I mean, and if they just have a little of both, then they're just kind of
Have you seen the first episode of Star Trek Picard?
Picard? Yeah, I have. Picard is a new series that is coming out on pay only channels, and don't want to give them any advertising. And it has Patrick Stewart playing Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek: The Next Generation, captain of the Enterprise D in that one, and he's now ancient as is Patrick Stewart, and it's picking up on his life and what's happening right now. And I saw the first episode. And Picard apparently resigned from Starfleet because Starfleet, as a protest, because the Romulan homeworld's planet, the sun was going nova, and the Federation wasn't willing to give them enough help to help evacuate and save. Millions of their people died because the Federation wasn't willing to help them. And the reason apparently the Federation didn't help them, though, is because there was actually a problem on some colonies on Mars, which I think Mars colonies and Federation you could beam to, but hey, dealing with synthetic beings, in other words, robots, androids. That seems to be the premise of this show, dealing with synthetics, which is Data, of course, is the one from Next Gen. That apparently there were some of them that were part of an uprising, and because of that, the Federation has now outlawed androids as part of the storyline. Kind of the absolute opposite of Star Wars, where they're everywhere.
Right.
You know, and so this thing all deals with Picard retires. He goes back to France. He sits around in his vineyard with his dog. Looks like an old dude. And then they introduce this character. His name is Daj, this female character, and she's off with her boyfriend. And Romulan assassins come to kill her that spray acid. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I saw. And she suddenly goes full. Michael Bourne, isn't it? Or is it Michael Bourne?
Jason Bourne?
Jason Bourne, sorry. You can fix that. She goes full Jason Bourne on them and takes out all of them in some like she's somehow a super person. And you find out that, and then she gets memories that she should go see Picard in her mind, and she goes to see Picard. Well, you find out she is a super person. It's kind of almost a version of a Terminator. It's what they call a positronic brain, which is what Data used to have, his computer brain thing, in an organically cloned body. So it's kind of like the last Terminator movie had kind of a semi-organic Terminator person. I mean, it sounds like these people are writing from the same storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And what ends up happening is she gets together with Picard, and soon afterwards the assassins show up again, and she ends up being killed. And apparently there's some way they're cloning the mental processes of Data, which it's an old idea called engrams, the patterns of a human mind, to make these organic beings with these positron brains, which is a weird term itself, because a positron is an anti-electron, so apparently they must have matter-antimatter reactions in their brains, because, I mean, all a positron, it is a oppositely charged electron.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, and Picard ends up gets all up and about it, tries to get together with the rest of the geriatric crew and pull them together, which is taking forever. And he ends up going to the Daystrom Institute in Okinawa, which is the big computer designer in Trek Classic stories. And he finds out about who this girl is, and that there's another one like of this daughter of Data idea that they're coming up with. And in the very end of it, this daughter of Data, and her name is, I don't remember, I'm drawing a blank on it. She's actually aboard a Borg crew cube that's being run by Romulans. And that's the big cliffhanger. And after I woke up, after watching this, well, actually I slipped out of a coma because it was, again, pretty weak. It's just not that interesting of a story. It's like this has a little Terminator mixed into it. I'm sure it's going to get overly. Patrick Stewart did it, and he's actually producing it, which means he has a huge input, and he's an extreme lefty. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of this. It's kind of a dark version of the Federation. You know, the Federation's not doing the things they want to do, that what their ideals are, and they're oppressing androids. I mean, I've seen this movie. If you let the robots get away, don't they just kill everybody? Isn't kill all humans what robots generally do?
Yeah. Is it good or not, you think?
If you're a Next Gen fan, they will be in glee because they get to see Picard even if he is old. Mm-hmm. They would get to see Riker even if he is old, and all these other ones. He's bringing the band together in the end for one last tour with phasers and walkers or whatever. They're going to be real excited about it. I'm not a Next Gen fan. I would rate it as a low C to a high D if I were grading it as a grade scale. And to give you, which puts it in the same range as, say, the Rise of Skywalker. I'd put that in that same range. It's a D, maybe range. Whereas I put the Mandalorian, for example, in a low A, high B range at the least. And only because I'm a critical SOB, I don't just give it an A and shut up.
Right. All right.
So
are you going to keep watching it?
Only probably because it's something we can talk about in these segments. Would I want to continue watching it if it was just me to watch it? I'm really not that interested in it. And I'm a Trek fan. I mean, I was a Star Trek original Space: The Final Frontier guy. I mean, I saw Star Trek as a boy on a black and white. The Enterprise used to be in black and white. Did you know that? On black and white TV. So I mean, a long time ago. And I didn't like Next Gen. I thought it was boorish. I liked DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise. I didn't care about. It got to the point now it was just repetition of the same thing. Nothing really new. They did their best work in modern Trek in DS9, and then they did because it was all part of the same continuity. It wasn't fighting with Trek Classic to try to prove that it's better.
What are you trying to say?
I'm suitably unimpressed with Picard. I think it's going to be a PC nonsense.
Yeah.
They're making they're kind of ruining Roddenberry's idea of the Federation. They did that a lot in that too. In Next Gen, they like to have big they had conspiracies in the Federation. The Federation's not as good as it seems, and there's actually corrupt things behind it. And it just, it doesn't play well. Anything you're going to have bad people. I can say any organization is going to have bad people, black ops people, whatever. But, I think they're fundamentally trying to tell you the Federation actually sucks because it's too militaristic. That's going to be their argument about it. Excluding the fact that if you didn't have military in Star Trek, they'd be conquered by the Romulans and the Klingons.
Right.
So.
It seems like there's this group, this really vocal group that ignore and don't appreciate or think that there should be like clarity or things should make sense in storytelling. Oh, well, it's just a movie, so they did it just because it's a movie. Anything can happen. Instead of having consistency with your source material,
your canon,
right? And they just think, oh, you're just being a fanatic, and why can't you just accept it? And everybody else is like, well, we just want quality.
Well,
Does that make sense?
It's a Star Wars argument too. You
Right.
need to look at where you've come from to where you're going.
Right.
I mean, this is the line of history in general. By looking at where you've been, you know where you are now. That's the idea of history. Period. Mm-hmm. And in the case of Trek, I mean, the Federation, was created in Star Trek in the 1960s, and they took on important issues of the time too. They had issues on racism and on the situations of women and things. Some of them were well handled, and then there's the ones that Roddenberry wrote, and they were horrible. Gene Roddenberry, apparently, he's one of the. I've read some stuff on him with DC Coons and the people in Fontana that worked with him on the series. He's one of the luckiest people who ever existed, because if he didn't get good people in Star Trek, it would have only lasted one season and no one would have ever remembered it. Mm-hmm. But he got good people involved because he wrote for westerns and the old western shows and things like that. He's trying to actually write storylines for sci-fi. Not everybody can write sci-fi. He literally, in one of his old descriptions when pitching the show, he thought of it kind of as a wagon train in the stars. And I'm going, yeah, well, you don't really have an idea what you're talking about. He accidentally seems like it was some of the other people, the Coons and Fontana and some of the ones like that actually made Trek Classic good, and that's why it survived over, and you ended up with all the stuff we have now. And apparently it took Enterprise to finally kill the franchise, but then lo and behold, it comes back again. Can't underestimate people's ability to want money, I guess.
Or be stupid.
Or be stupid. I have low expectations. On the other hand, they have a new Star Trek that has had a season where they had this half-female Romulan character who's a captain or whatever. I watched the first episode of it, and it was so stupid. I just said, this is so stupid, I'm just going to put it away.
Yeah.
It's not worth watching. And I had low expectations because it's like PC on steroids. I mean, I hate it. I hate saying it because it makes me sound like you can go ahead and throw out misogynistic, pig, toxic, all that kind of stuff. But if you've got a 120-pound woman who's supposed to be fighting a 280-pound Klingon, who are supposed to be at least as strong as Vulcans are,
right,
and they're slapping them around with their little tiny 120-pound fists, who they would have a hard time hurting me with, let alone a Klingon, I go, you're not helping women's issues by doing that. You're telling women that if I'm a 120-pound woman, I can beat up a 280-pound man, and the day that she finds out, tries to happen, that something horrible is going to happen to her, because it isn't true.
Oh, you're such a toxic male.
It'll probably be watched. There's a solid fan base of next-gen people that are just fanatical about it, and everything else is bad because it was their Star Trek. Doesn't matter if it wasn't interesting. Doesn't matter if it was you didn't really care much about the characters. It was their Trek, so you had to like it. And and they're going to be adamantly in favor of it still. I think probably generally most others will probably go. Again, Star Wars made a lot of money with its movies, though not as much as well. So I ask you a question. You take more track of this. Are the Star Wars movies, the new ones, the last 3, are they considered successes? Or are they considered not to be successes?
Kind of both. Kind of financial successes because they didn't lose money, but it split the fandom, and it didn't make as much money as it could have or should have, being the biggest IP in the history of the world, and then is just slowly being kind of dissected. Does that make sense?
It does. It's a really strange sort of thing. It's, how do you determine... I would tend to thought, if it makes money, I know that generally a film has to make 2 or 3 times its money to be considered a success, financially a success. So but if you're in the process, you make twice the money, but you isolate half your fans, then you're not going to be able to sell that product in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see that to be the problem. And I can tell you that what's probably hurt the new Star Wars movies more than anything else is The Mandalorian.
Yeah, because it's so good?
Because it's good. It tells the people that you can actually have a story that is interesting and good. Without spoil, I became interested in the characters. The one thing you never want to do in a series or movie is say, I don't care what happens to these people. If you reach that point in a show or a movie, then your movie has failed.
Right.
You either want them to either be killed, or you want them to, if they're bad people in theory, or you want them to succeed. You want them to thrive. And the other and you have a successful storyline when you hear the phrase comes in your mind. I'd like to know more about that character.
Yeah, you don't see people wanting to dress up as the First Order stormtroopers or Kylo Ren. They want to dress up like the Boba Fett's and the original stormtroopers and the Darth Vaders and stuff. You don't see them wanting to dress up.
The Darth Mauls. They really
nobody cares about the new characters.
Yeah, and I think that's to a certain extent that's the case. I'm sure there are girls that are dressing up like the Rey character,
right? Because
she's the only really thing they have,
right?
To in those movies.
And that's changed an awful lot. Even with like Finn and Rey, they started out strong out of the gate, and then they just lost especially by the second movie. It's like they fizzled out. And the girls wanting to be Rey don't want to be Rey as much as they used to, or didn't like Rey as much as they used to. Or the same thing with Finn, and just because of where his character went.
Yeah, he went from an interesting character that, he picked up a lightsaber in the first movie and was fighting the big bad, the alleged big bad.
Right.
That's my only problem with Kylo Ren is I always looked at him and I go, that a real Jedi Knight would just slap you around. Or a real Sith Lord. What would Darth Maul do to Kylo Ren?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
What would a full-fledged, what would Mace Windu do to Kylo Ren?
Yeah. You would have disassembled him.
And if it was Samuel Jackson, he'd have called him a mother. Never mind.
Right. Well, that'll do it for this episode. You want to let them know how to get a hold of us?
Well, of course, you can go to YouTube and look up Johnny and the Professor. I post the audio of the shows every week there. We have last week's up, and then of course right after this, after we get this all done and up, we'll have it up for this one. So, and of course, you can email us through jpshowfm@gmail.com. And I have my own webpage, which is Arena of History, which I haven't been posting on much lately because the show's keeping me busy. I write articles personally for the Senior Sunset Times.
This has been Johnny and the Professor. Politics.
This is actually what makes this whole thing so comical.
Pop culture.
This is something that they're going to be prioritizing, and that is diversity. Now, this is stupid.
Common sense in senseless times.